जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस जगच्चर्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद् अभय चरणारविंद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस जगच्चर्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्री श्री राधा गोपीनाथ भगवान की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. So nice to see all of you on this Saturday morning. So today we are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 13, texts number 32 and 33. Chapter title, Description of the Descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. So we'll repeat. Text 32. Tata sadaya badram te Tata sadhaya badram te Atmanam suprajam nripa Atmanam suprajam nripa Ishtaste putra kamasya Ishtaste putra kamasya Putram dasyati yagna bhuk Putram dasyati yagna bhuk Tata sadaya bhadram te Atmanam suprajam nripa Ishtaste putra kamasya Putram dasyati yagna bhuk Tata sadaya bhadram te atmanam suprajam nripa ishtaste putra kamasya putram dasyati yajnabhuk. Tata sadaya bhadram te atmanam suprajam nripa ishtaste putra kamasya putram dasyati yajnabhuk. Vaishnavis. Tata sadaya bhadram te atmanam suprajam nripa ishtaste putra kamasya putram dasyati yajnabhuk. Tata sadaya bhadram te atmanam suprajam nripa ishtaste putra kamasya putram dasyati yajnabhuk. Let's look at the word-to-word meaning. Tata, therefore, svabhagadeyani, sadhaya, execute the sacrifice to get. Bhadram, good fortune. Te, to you. Atmanam, your own. Suprajam, good son. Nripa, O king. Ishtaha, being worshipped. Te, by you. Putra kamasya, desiring to have a son. Putram, a son. Dasyati, he will deliver. Yagnabhuk, the Lord, the enjoyer of the sacrifice. Translation and purpose by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. O King, we wish all good fortune for you. You have no son, but if you pray at once to the Supreme Lord and ask for a son, and if you execute the sacrifice for that purpose, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will fulfill your desire. So we'll go to the next text. Text 33. Tata svabhagadeyani tatas grahishyanti divaukasaha yadyagna purusha sakshad apatyaya harirvrataha. Translation. When Hari, the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices, is invited to fulfill your desire for a son, all the demigods will come with him and take their shares in the sacrifice. Purport: whenever a sacrifice is performed, it is meant for satisfying Lord Vishnu, the enjoyer of the fruits of all sacrifices. And when Lord Vishnu agrees to come to a sacrificial arena, all the demigods naturally follow their master, and their shares are offered in such sacrifices. The conclusion is that the sacrifices performed are meant for Lord Vishnu, not for the demigods. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Let's do Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanathimirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bhuter Mahatbir Yaima Puro Vibhu Nirmaya Shete Yadamoshu Purusha Bhunkter Gunamsho Dashashodasatmaka Solang Krashishta Bhagavan Vachamsi Me. Shri Krishna Sharanam Sharanagatam Katha Amritam Satatapi Bhatam Bhakti Vedanta Marga Panktanam Sarvalokarishi Deva Janna Prasannam Sarvalokarishi Deva Janna Prasannam. Hare Krishna. Welcome again everyone to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam. So, for the pleasure of Shishi Radha Gopinath, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev and all the Vaishnavas, today let us speak and hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, the most beautiful literal incarnation of Sri Krishna. So in this chapter, we are hearing about the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. So who are all the descendants following in the lineage of Dhruva Maharaj. And right now, Maitreya Muni is speaking to Vidura about King Anga. So, King Anga had a son named King Vena. And because of Vena's very bad character, what did King Vena do? He just left to the forest. He didn't want to stay at home anymore. And so Vidura is asking Maitreya Muni, what happened? Why did King Anga have such a bad son? While King Anga himself was so gentle and of such a high character, and he was a very saintly person, how come such a king could have a son who was of such a bad character? How is that possible? So in response to this question, Maitreya Muni is beginning to speak and explain the pastime of what happened. So once King Anga was conducting the Ashwamedha sacrifice. And in this sacrifice, what happened? All the brahmanas, the priests, they were performing everything so nicely. They offered the best of the clarified butter, and their chanting of all the hymns was so perfect, and all the offerings were being made so nicely. And yet the demigods did not appear in that yajna, and the demigods did not accept the offerings. So now the priests were a little bit perplexed, and they were wondering, and they were expressing their concern to King Anga. They were saying, we are doing everything so nicely, but yet the demigods are not appearing to take their shares. So now King Anga, he breaks his silence of not speaking, and he is asking, "Oh Brahmana priests, please tell me what happened. What offense did I do that the demigods are not appearing and accepting this offering?" So then the Brahmanas are replying, "O King Anga, even though you are so pure, even though you haven't done any sinful activities in this life, because of the sinful activities in your previous life, you don't have a son. But still, what can you do? When we are performing this yajna, if you pray to Lord Vishnu," so that is what brings us to this verse that we are reciting today. "O King, we wish all good fortune for you. You have no son. But if you pray at once to the Supreme Lord and ask for a son, and if you execute the sacrifice for that pleasure, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will fulfill your desire." And then they say, when Hari, the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices, is invited to fulfill your desire for a son, all the demigods will come with him and take their shares in the sacrifice. So as soon as I read this verse, I was reminded of a beautiful verse from Bhagavad Gita. So can you guess what that verse is? And you all know that as well. Actually, two beautiful verses. What comes to your mind? As soon as we hear that Vishnu is the supreme enjoyer of all the sacrifices. Bhoktaram yagna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhrudam sarvabhutanam jnatva mam shantim richati. So what does this verse in Bhagavad Gita say as well? Bhoktaram, that is the enjoyer or the beneficiary of all the sacrifices, is Lord Vishnu. So all our yajnas, our austerities, whatever we do, everything is for the pleasure of Krishna. So we see that in this sacrifice, initially when King Anga was performing, in his intention, he did not really propitiate Lord Vishnu. He was just doing the Ashwamedha sacrifice, maybe just to please the demigods. And so now the Brahmanas are explaining that unless Lord Vishnu is pleased, the demigods will not appear. Whereas at the same time, once you please Lord Vishnu through your yajna, then immediately the demigods, who are all a part and parcel of Lord Vishnu, they will also appear and they will accept these offerings. So when Lord Vishnu is pleased, then the demigods are pleased and they will bestow their blessings. And when Lord Vishnu is pleased, everyone is pleased. Why? Because we are all what are we? We are a part and parcel of Krishna. And we are his dear little tiny servants. So when Krishna is pleased, automatically everyone is pleased. So that is the main purport of today's verse that we are learning. And here Srila Prabhupada is also saying that when a sacrifice is performed, it is meant for satisfying Lord Vishnu, the enjoyer of the fruits of all sacrifices. And when Lord Vishnu agrees to come to a sacrificial arena, all the demigods will naturally follow their master. So it's a bit like, let's say we want to have a big grand function. Let's imagine we are reopening the new temple for Shri Radha Gopinath, and our intention is we want the Prime Minister of Australia to come. But now, instead of sending an invitation directly to the Prime Minister through, his assistants and through the proper protocol, if we just go to the security guards and we keep inviting them, come, please come, please come. And we are thinking, oh, the Prime Minister will come, because we are inviting his security guards. Will that ever happen? Will the security guards come? They have better work to do. They have to go wherever the Prime Minister is going. And imagine if the Prime Minister has an appointment somewhere else, then that's where the security guards will go. So, even in our life, in all our activities, if we see our entire life as a yajna for pleasing Krishna, whatever activities we do, if we aim to please Krishna through that, then what happens? When Krishna is pleased, automatically everything in our life becomes smooth and peaceful, and it is full of bliss and full of loving exchanges. And all the demigods, everyone is satisfied and pleased. So there is no need for a separate endeavor. So Srila Prabhupada, through some of the verses in Bhagavad Gita, we can see what he is explaining to us more on this point. So in today's verse, we saw two beautiful names of Lord Vishnu. Does anyone remember, or can you find out what that is? Yagna Bhuk and Yagna Purushaha. So both mean the enjoyer of the sacrifice. Okay, so Yagna Bhuk means the one who is the enjoyer of the sacrifice. Yagna Purushaha, which also means that the Lord of all the sacrifice. So Yagna itself is also the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. He says that in Bhagavad Gita as well. So in these verses, let us try to meditate on Yagna Bhuk and Yagna Purushaha. So in Bhagavad Gita, there's another beautiful verse that We can meditate. Sahayagna praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadvam eshavostvashta kamadhuk. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna or sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation." So here Srila Prabhupada explains that this whole material world is an opportunity for us to revive our forgotten relationship with the Supreme Lord. Because all of us, the living entities, we have fallen down into the material world and we have forgotten our relationship with Krishna, what does Krishna do? Along with us, he sends this beautiful concept of yajna. So we have seen, isn't it, the fire sacrifice which we perform. So when we see throughout a person's life, from the time they are born till the death, for every important activity in their life, if we see according to the Vedic principles, we perform certain yagnas. For the name giving ceremony, when the child is born, they have a yagna. And then when the child grows up, again they have another yagna, when for boys, especially when they get the Brahman thread. And then when they grow up, for their, and even for kids, before they start their education, they do a yagna. Then when they get married, they do a yagna. And then when they have children, again they do yagna. Then when their children grow up, they do a yagna. And then even for the last rites of a person, when a person is dying, even at that time they do a yagna. After that, the Shraddha ceremony. So what does this do? All these yajnas, they help us to purify our existence in this life. Why? Because through these yajnas, when we put offerings, what do we say? Krishnaya idam na mama. Have you heard that? We'll put something, we'll put some, the sesame seeds or grains, and then we'll hear the Brahman priests, they will be chanting, Krishnaya idam na mama, Krishnaya idam na mama, Krishnaya idam na mama. What does that mean? This is for Krishna, it is not for me. Na mama, not for me. So whatever I'm doing, everything is for the pleasure of Krishna. So that way, throughout our existence, in this life, we can purify our life by offering everything to Krishna. Because living in this material world, we cannot also bypass our protocols or our activities that we have to perform in this life. Now, can anyone just renounce everything and say, I'm not going to do any work, I'm not going to have a family, I'm not going to, nothing belongs to me? My Guru Maharaj says that the only thing that we have to renounce is our ego and the pride of thinking that something belongs to me. That is the only thing that we have to renounce. Because what else do we have? Can I say this mic is mine, this book is mine, this, these glasses are mine? No. Everything belongs to Krishna. Then what are we renouncing? Do we even have the
audacity to say that I'm renouncing something. We cannot. But what do? We engage everything for Krishna's pleasure. That is Yukta Vairagya. So by attaching and using everything for Krishna's pleasure, that is perfect renunciation. Once I was even hearing Gokuleshwar Prabhuji say, there's a whole lecture on renunciation. What is renunciation? And there he very clearly at the end, he concludes by saying this very same point, that everything is Krishna's property. So we don't own anything for us to think that I am giving this up. But instead we use everything for Krishna's pleasure. So through all these yajnas, well, what is Lord Krishna saying in this verse? That the Vedic principles are here to help us understand our eternal relationship with Krishna. And therefore, by performing all these yajnas, which are, given in the Vedas, we are trying to revive our relationship back with Krishna. So, and we also know this beautiful verse, the other beautiful verse, or there are many, but one more beautiful verse in relation to yajna. Anyone can guess from Bhagavad Gita? Huh? It's one of my favorite. Sorry, Prabhuji? Yes. And in relation to today's verse, Yajnatat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sanga samachara. Can we repeat that? Yajnartat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sanga samachara. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. And in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. So here again, Krishna is saying that our work, as we saw earlier as well, whatever we are doing, it has to be done as a yajna for pleasing Krishna. Otherwise, the work will create bondage for us. Why? Because without putting Krishna in the center of our life, any activities that we do, it will create karmic reactions. There is both the positive and the negative. So for the good actions that we do, we will accrue good results. And for the negative actions that we do, we will be getting negative results and negative reactions. Now this will go on, +1, +2 here, and then suddenly there's a minus here, and then there's a +3 here, and then our good goes up, +4, and then a minus comes, again go down. Have we seen this snakes and ladder game? Yeah, as little kids, we used to play the snakes and ladder. So there's a ladder, when your dice falls on that, it'll go boom, up. And then suddenly the next one, there's a snake, you have to come all the way down. So like this, it will go on and on and on, and we will be caught up in this repeated cycle of birth and death. And even in this very life, we will be experiencing that. There is happiness, there is sadness, happiness, sadness. It will go on like this. But once we place Krishna in the center of our life, and once we do our work for His pleasure, then what happens? All these reactions are nullified. Why? Because at that stage, Krishna takes charge of our life. And at that stage, we don't have to worry about anything. Whatever Krishna wants, He can do that with us. So our desires will simply be, Krishna, I want to please you and I'm trying my best. So whatever is your wish and your will for me, you make that happen. And even that we don't have to tell Him, because Krishna already knows. So, why should we even have that pride, or not pride? Why should we even have that, question or suggestion to Krishna? Krishna is like our loving Father. He's our beloved. So imagine when you have your dear, very loving partner, what will they do? They want to please you with everything. So we don't have to tell them, I want this, I want that. They will automatically come and give it to you. If you like some beautiful flowers, they will automatically, knowing if they truly love you, they will come and give you some flowers. You like kartal, they'll give you kartal. You like mridanga, they'll give you a mridanga. So like that, we don't have to say anything to Krishna. Krishna knows what is in our heart. So then when a life goes on like this as a yajna, then it is just full of loving exchanges for the pleasure of Krishna. So then there is no question of any karmic reactions. So that way we will simply just escape this whole bondage of the cycle of birth and death. So then also we see, of course, the beautiful verse, Bhoktaram Yagna Tapasam. Everyone together. Bhoktaram Yagna Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Nyatva Mam Shantim Richati. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So as we saw, Bhoktaram, Krishna is the ultimate beneficiary of all our sacrifices. So He is the one who benefits. So we are not thinking, what do I get out of doing something? What do I get out of doing this yajna? Or what do I get out of doing some work? Or what do I get out of, having a beautiful family? But everything we think, I am doing this for the pleasure of Vishnu, for the pleasure of Krishna. He is the one who is going to benefit from this. So like that way, if we keep refining our thoughts constantly, let's say you want to drive, and you want to drive looking at the beautiful sunrise in the morning. Now, if we just keep thinking, I want to drive a car and just look at sunrise in the morning, and you set an alarm, but we will not wake up. You'll go back to sleep. But let's say we put Krishna as a beneficiary, and we say, oh, I have to go for Darshanarati at 7 a.m. in the morning, or I have to go for Mangalarati. Mangalarati, okay, little bit too early, sun is not up as yet. But still, you can still come for Mangalarati. But if you say, oh, I definitely want to go and sing Kirtan for Krishna's pleasure at 7 a.m., then you set your alarm, then what happens? Automatically you're going to wake up, automatically you're driving the car, automatically you're beautifully looking at the sunrise on the way. So when you want to please Krishna, then when Krishna is a beneficiary, automatically all our other desires and needs are all fulfilled. We don't have to separately try for them. Now, there's this another beautiful point. Now, we keep thinking we want to please Krishna. But what does Krishna feel? So, let's see what Narad Muni is speaking to Yudhishthir Maharaj. What does he say? Na hyagni mukhato yam vai Bhagavan sarva yagna bhuk ijjetaha visharajan yata vipra mukhe hutai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the enjoyer of sacrificial offerings, which is what we just saw. Yet, although his lordship eats the oblations offered in the fire, my dear king, he is still more satisfied when nice food made of grains and ghee is offered to him through the mouths of qualified brahmanas. So isn't that really interesting? So we are saying Krishnaya idam namama, Krishnaya idam namama. And what does Krishna want? What does Lord Vishnu is pleased? How is he pleased even more? When whatever we offer, the food or the bhoga that is offered, when that is then distributed to all the brahmanas and the Vaishnavas, then that pleases Krishna more. Because Lord Vishnu feels that I want my devotees to be pleased. So that gives more pleasure for Krishna. So rather than trying to, so we think we want to please him, and then Krishna feels, I want to please my devotee. So there's like this beautiful big competition that is going on. So Krishna is saying, you please my devotee, then I will be pleased. Don't come to me directly. So this is going in a circle like that. So then the exchange of love is intensified between Krishna and us. So then what do we do through all our activities in our life? We don't try to please Krishna directly, but we try to please his dear devotees. We try to please the Vaishnavas who are serving Krishna so beautifully. So when Vaishnavas are pleased, then Krishna is automatically pleased. So now we will hear a beautiful pastime from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which some of us may know, and for the pleasure of all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, let us hear this. So once Krishna and Balram, they were walking in the forest, and along with him all his Gopa friends were going. And what happened? The Gopa friends told Krishna Balram, oh Krishna, we are so hungry. Can you get us something to eat? And then what did Krishna immediately say? Oh, is it? Okay. You please go to this sacrificial arena where there are some Brahmana priests. They are doing a big yajna. So go and ask them for some food and please tell them that Krishna Balram have come. So these little boys, they go to the priests and they ask, oh, please give some food, our dear lordships. Not lordships, they say their dear Krishna and Balram have come. So what do these Brahmana priests do? They are so engaged and engrossed in the sacrifice. You know, they are trying to please all the demigods, they are just doing their yajna. And they are ignoring Krishna, who's the Supreme Lord, who has personally come there in front of them. Without knowing, they are saying, oh no, we can't give. And then they go back and they tell Krishna Balram, we went, but the Brahmanas didn't give us anything. Then Krishna says, now you do one thing. You please go to the wives of the Brahmanas and ask them. And then you see what will happen. So now the boys, the Gopa friends, they go to the house and they see the Brahmanas' wives. And then they ask them, Krishna Balram have come, can you please give us some food? Immediately the wives of the Brahmanas, with all their heart, they start preparing wonderful aromatic dishes and they are eagerly waiting to go and see Krishna Balram. So immediately what do? They fill up big large vessels full of tasty 4 different types of different dishes. Many different types of dishes. And they are running to go and see Krishna Balram. And when they go to see, what happens? Also, these wives of the Brahmanas, they have been hearing about Krishna for a very long time. So by that, they have developed love for Krishna. So with so much love in their heart, they are running. And then what do they see there? Shyamam hiranya paridim vanamalya barha dhatu pravala nataveshamana pratamshe vinyasta hastamitarena dunanamabjam karnotpalalaka kapola mukhabjahasam. So they see the beautiful Krishna and Balram. And when they see Krishna, his complexion was dark blue and his garment golden, wearing a peacock feather, colored minerals, sprigs of flower buds, and a garland of forest flowers and leaves. He was dressed just like a dramatic dancer. Just like we can see Shishi Radha Gopinath today. He rested one hand upon the shoulder of a friend and with the other twirled a lotus. Lilies graced his ears. His hair hung down over his cheeks and his lotus-like face was smiling. So beautiful, such a sweet darshan of Krishna. So even if we see Radha Gopinath today, he's wearing beautiful flower buds on his head and his curly locks of hair, they touch his cheeks. And he's wearing beautiful yellow garland. And Shrimati Radharani is standing so beautiful and stunning and sweet right next to him. So when the wives of the Brahmanas, when they saw Krishna like this, they just captured him into the core of their hearts and they embraced him so dearly within their heart. And then they didn't want to go from there, sitting at Krishna's lotus feet. But now what did Krishna say? No, you have to go home and go and do your duties, but thinking of me always, you will remember me. And that way, your love for me will intensify more and more. So this is love in separation. So Vipralamba Shringara. When we are away from our beloved, our love intensifies more and more. So here, what happens after this? When the Brahmana's wives, when they come home, then the priests, the Brahmanas, they are feeling so remorseful. You know, they realized that Krishna Balram were right here and we ignored them. And then what are they saying? What is the point of all our austerities and our celibacy and our tapas and this and that, our expertise in performing rituals, when we were inimical to Sri Krishna, the supreme enjoyer who was right here before us? So then what do they say? Deshakala pratagdravyam mantratantra tvijognayah deve devataya jamanascha kratur dharmascha yanmayah sa eva bhagavan sakshad Vishnur Yogeshwareshwarah Jato Yadushrityashran Ashranma Hyapi Mudhana Vidmahe. So now with their full realization, the Brahmanas are saying, all the aspects of sacrifice, the auspicious place and time, the various items of paraphernalia, the Vedic hymns, the prescribed rituals, the priests and sacrificial fires, which is what we saw, yajna, the demigods, the patron of the sacrifice, the sacrificial offering, and the pious results obtained are all simply manifestations of his opulences. Yet, even though we had heard that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, the Lord of all mystic controllers, had taken birth in the Yadu dynasty, we were so foolish that we could not recognize Sri Krishna to be none other than him. So here the Brahmanas are saying, you know, everything, the rituals, the sacrifice, the time, the place, the people, everything is an opulence of Krishna. Everything is a reflection of Krishna's opulence. And how can we just ignore that with our foolish mind? So we can also learn this very important aspect from today's verses, that King Anga, when he was performing the sacrifice, because initially they did not invite Lord Vishnu, and therefore the demigods did not appear. So now the priests are advising King Anga and saying, once you invite Lord Vishnu, then Vishnu being pleased, all the demigods will be pleased, and you will also be pleased, and your desires will be fulfilled. Now for us, we can think, you know, why are they saying, you know, do this yajna so that you will get a son or something like that? So for us to learn, what do we learn? We are not doing our activity to gain something. Then that is motivational. But what do? Ahaituki apratihata. That means we are trying to do unmotivated devotional service. But how do we do that? Also, we are all tiny little human beings, you know, still our minds. We are battling with our mind every day. You know, when we look at a beautiful or a tasty gulab jamun, we feel, oh, I want to have that gulab jamun. But we have to feel this gulab jamun, I will offer it to Krishna for his pleasure, and then I will accept it. Then the gulab jamun becomes even more tasty. So, like that in our life, whatever we do, we place Krishna in the center of our life and we keep trying to please him. So, we'll conclude with this beautiful verse where Shukadev Goswami is praying. So, what is he saying? May Lord Sri Krishna, who is the worshipable Lord of all devotees, the protector and glory of all the kings like Andaka and Vrishni of the Yadu dynasty, the husband of all goddesses of fortune, the director of all sacrifices, and therefore the leader of all living entities, the controller of all intelligence, the proprietor of all planets, spiritual and material, and the supreme incarnation on the earth, the supreme all in all, be merciful upon me. So, for us, even to have that intention in our heart, you know, to refine our mind, to refine our desires constantly. What I'm doing is for Krishna's pleasure. What I'm doing is for Krishna's pleasure. We need Krishna's mercy. We need Nityananda's mercy. And who's Lord Nityananda? He's the Guru Tattva. We need our Guru's mercy. So when we channelize our desires to please our Guru, to please Vaishnavas, to please Krishna, then everything becomes peaceful and blissful in our life. Then that way we can also increase Krishna's pleasure every day and night and 24 hours a day by serving him constantly. So what does Shukadev Goswami say? Shriya patir yagnapati prajapatir diyam patir lokapatir darapatihi patir gatishchandaka vrishni satvatam prasidatam me Bhagavan satam patihi. Shriya Patir, that is, he is the Lord, husband of the goddesses of fortune. Yagnapati, the Lord of Yagnas. Prajapatir, he is the protector of everyone. Dhiyampati, he is the director of our intelligence. Lokapatir, the supreme Lord of all the lokas. Dharapati, Patir Gatish Chandaka Vrishni Satvatam Prasidatam me Bhagavan Satam Patihi. So we can just repeat this verse. Shriya Patir Yagnapati Prajapatir Diyam Patir Lokapatir Dharapatihi Patir Gatish Chandaka Vrishni Satvatam Prasidatam me Bhagavan Satam Patihi. So on that note, we will end today's Srimad Bhagavatam class by praying to Shri Shri Radha Gopinath for their loving mercy upon all of us, so that in all our activities in our life, we can always please them ever and ever and ever, more and more and more, every day and night, and 24 hours a day be immersed in serving and pleasing Krishna. Jai Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions, comments? Okay, so why didn't, so the question is, why didn't the priests advise King Anga to perform the yajna for Lord Vishnu right at the start? Okay, so if that had happened, then this whole pastime wouldn't unfold. So, from my limited understanding, although it is not exactly mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, so we cannot contemplate why certain things happened or why certain things didn't happen. But what we can understand is that everything is directed by Krishna for his pleasure. So anything that happens is also directed by Krishna. So at the start, it is probably through, we can't make guesses, but it is through Krishna's plan that this happened, that they didn't initially propitiate Vishnu. But then what is Krishna doing? He is giving them the understanding that you cannot just approach the demigods, just for your own pleasures, but Lord Vishnu has to be there. So to drive home this point, to teach us these lessons, this pastime is also unfolding in this way. So whenever we see anything in Srimad Bhagavatam that we are not able to understand, we try to see that Krishna has a plan. He is giving us some lessons through this. And everything is for Krishna's pleasure. So sometimes we even see that, the Varaha, when Krishna appeared as the boar incarnation, Varaha, he was fighting with whom? With Hiranyaksha. So we can think, why is Hiranyaksha fighting with Lord? The Lord is here. How can Hiranyaksha fight with him? But what is the reason? Because Krishna in his incarnation as Lord Varaha wanted to have this fight with his dear devotee. And so all these punches were like flower petals falling on his chest. So like that, everything is orchestrated by the Supreme Lord. So we can see it from the perspective that the Lord wanted King Anga to learn some lesson out of this. And so maybe it happened this way, and through all this, Lord Krishna is also teaching all of us this important lesson. Okay? Hare Krishna. Yeah? Yeah? Why not having? Sin of previous life. Okay. So, for this question, sign off? Or why having a son is a sign of piety? Okay. So, when people do pious activities, there are good results. As a result of pious activities, people get results. So that way, it is also when someone has done a lot of pious activities, when they have a son and when they can engage the son in Krishna's service, then that is auspicious, isn't it? So, like that, whether it is a son or a daughter, it doesn't matter, just having a child, maybe. But at the same time, we have to see whatever is our situation in life, that is a blessing of Krishna for a certain reason, for a certain purpose. Now, if someone doesn't have a child, it doesn't mean that, they're not pious or they're not. Krishna has a plan for that person. Maybe Krishna himself wants to have that loving exchange with the person as their son, so that we can wholeheartedly serve Krishna, have that loving exchange with our dear little Damodar. So that way, Krishna has a plan for all of us. So these, verses in Bhagavatam, they all teach us many different lessons. And we accept them as they are, and we see what we can learn and how we can please Krishna at the end of it. Okay? Thank you. Hare Krishna. Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai.